Yeah, here we go. John Horrigan, joined by Terry Ryan, former first-round pick of the Montreal Canadiens, 3 years in the NHL, played all levels of senior hockey across the great land of Newfoundland in Canada, every level, IHL, East Coast Hockey League. In fact, you finished your career with the Newfoundland Growlers on your birthday. But more importantly, we're here for Shoresy, and this guy plays Ted Hitchcock. Good to see you, buddy.
It's great to see you again. We go back a little ways. Did some tours of duty in the charity hockey circuit a bunch of years ago. So it's awesome to see you, John. And couldn't be any happier. Boston is one of my favorite cities in the world. I'm not just saying it because I'm here. I used to fly down here and go to Cape Cod, to Falmouth, to a hockey camp, Paul Vincent's hockey camp. I love it. It's very much, anybody who's been to St. John's, Newfoundland knows that there's lots of parallels with Boston. My name is of Irish heritage, and there's lots of that around here. Hockey-loving people like their beer cold. I absolutely, and they love their hockey and they love their hockey fights. And their sports heroes their sports icons are local heroes. And I love that about Boston. And I've always admired that as a sports fan.
I met you many years ago, I think playing in Mount Pearl as we did the hockey tours. But one thing, I was doing a TV show at the time called The Folklores, and you were actually going for a degree in college for folklore.
Yeah, I got it afterwards. I have a Bachelor of Arts, a double major in folklore and English. And while that might not seem connected to much I'm doing, it did really help. While I was in there, I wrote my book called Tales of a First Round Nothing, and it helped me not need a ghostwriter, basically. Folklore, I tried to focus on the storytelling part of it, and English, the grammar, and, there's other things, obviously, to unpack in a degree. But those are the things I focused on. I wanted to write my own book, and within that arts degree that I did, there was some film courses. So I took 3 or 4 film courses, and I worked on a film set, Republic of Doyle at first, and then Frontier, and, that's kind of how I got into the acting world. I was a member of the crew for at least 5 or 6 years before any of this happened.
You worked so hard as a hockey player. You worked so hard as an actor. I do remember when you first joined the crew and then the cast of Republic of Doyle, a detective show in St. John, Newfoundland. But St. John's, Newfoundland.
You're right.
So, but then you went to several auditions, dozens and dozens of auditions, and finally you landed this gig on Shoresy.
Yeah, if you're going to do, a lot of people think that most of us are hockey players, so they think that was just given to us. But I know that's not the case for everybody. I can only speak for myself. But yeah, it was 6 years before I even tried an audition. Even there, I got a couple of stunts, minor roles. I'm talking 50, 60, 70 tries. And then, a couple of local things that I was pumped about, but the rest of the world probably wouldn't see. And then, I got an opportunity to audition for Ted Hitchcock for Shoresy, and at first it was one scene in Letterkenny, and I'm a big fan, so if it had ended at one scene in Letterkenny, then I would be bragging about it to this day. So, this is beyond my wildest imagination.
And finally, this 3 seasons, great show. I just binged it over the last week or so. Part 1's over. You can't tell us what will happen in Part 2, but for all the fans who watch Shoresy on Hulu, it's going to be when do you start shooting again?
Well, season 4 we've shot, and that's coming out. I don't know if a lot of people realize that yet. Should come out in early 2025, and the fans here are going to get a sneak peek tonight. I can't let much go, but it's more of it takes place in the summer, so it's a little bit of a different vibe. It might be the off-season sort of thing, and we have a few things to figure out. That's as far as I can go with it. I know that if you like the first 3 seasons, you're going to love this season, and this was... To say enjoyable would be an understatement. It was a lot of fun. The hardest part of shooting it was honestly not laughing during the scenes. This is one of my favorite things that I've ever done on the ice or off the ice. So if you're a fan, get ready. It's coming.
And finally, everybody knows that your dad played in the Old World Hockey Association with the Minnesota Fighting Saints. So that was handed down. That's why you got a #1 pick. 50 goals, 60 assists, 207 minutes in one season. It's crazy.
Thanks for paying attention, John. Should have been my agent. I was brought up around the rink, and I'm an only child. My dad was a coach after he played, so, all that ice time, all that, and, back in that day, it wasn't just so easy. I worked for my hockey knowledge. I went to libraries. I bought hockey encyclopedias. I read Stan Fischler, Red Fisher, Bob McCowan. I was always, involved in a way that I always loved hockey not only the people that played the game, but the people that wrote about it and the culture about it in general. And I always loved talking to fans and interacting. And, to have some great seasons myself as, a junior, and then, getting drafted, it really was a dream come true. But more than anything, I'm just glad that I'm still involved in the game. Let's a lot of people say the hardest thing to do is step away. And I'm lucky enough, I never really had to step away yet. And to be able to portray a character who I really love and representing a place I really love in Newfoundland and Ted Hitchcock, and then, a show like Shoresy, which makes people smile. Not every show does that, so we realize how lucky we are.
Great. Terry Ryan, moments away from the Shoresy Fall Classic right here at BU. Thanks, Terry.
Thanks, John.